Get it.
Hey, I'm Dylan. I'm not a programmer, but I like to draw and think video games are cool. So today we're gonna design one. I actually started this by working on a different project of mine, but that one quickly grew and got way out of hand. So what we're gonna do is snap off this piece here and run with it. While I draw up the world map, let me set the scene. I was originally concepting out my dream video game, this big voxel art project with fishing, bug catching, detailed combat, pets, magic, farming, a massive world to explore. But it's just so easy for large scale projects like that to balloon in size and get away from you. So the way I've been tackling that is by snapping off one mechanic at a time and designing a whole new game around it. My thinking is that this way you can fully flesh out the smaller chunks and then stitch them together afterwards into the original mega project. So the premise for this one is it's an island exploration and fishing game. The island will be fairly small but very densely packed with detail. I want you to be able to spend hours in each area, always finding new things. There's nothing worse than an open world game with nothing to look at while you drag yourself from point A to B. Small and dense beats big and empty, for sure. You'll wander around sightseeing, catching weird fish, chatting with the locals to learn about the myths of the island. They'll have quests for you, and in return you'll get items that let you explore deeper into old areas. But more on all that later. The map's done now, so let's check out the first area of the game. You first wake up on this beach here, with no clear understanding of who you are or where you've come from. There will be hints at your past scattered across the island, from paintings in caves to the wreckage of a raft washed up on shore. Or maybe they're not yours, who's to say? I'll have my own story in mind, but I like the idea of it being open-ended enough that you can connect the dots in your own way too. That the story is uncovered through your own exploration and interpretation, rather than dictated to you through NPC dialogue. Show, don't tell is a good writing tool to keep in mind. You can actually see a few different areas in this one painting. Like I said before, I want the map to be small, but also densely packed so that it's rich for exploration. Like that mountain off the back of the beach. If you explore enough and come across it, it's got a cave running right through that'll take you up to the plateau there. These are two areas that are otherwise only connected through the much longer path through the fishing village. I actually have a clearer view of that path, so let's check that out now. Right now, I'm still in the concepting phase, mapping out the general landmarks and building up the feel of the world. The details here aren't set in stone, actually it's quite the opposite. These paintings here are a way for me to see which ideas work and which need more thought. This area in particular feels way too open, so I think what I'll do is change the path you walk through the area. A straight line path is very open-ended, anything can go anywhere on either side, but if you break it up more and make the player weave in and out, you have to find interesting things to fill in the gaps that you've created. Plus, if it's densely packed, the player will see more stuff, so the area will feel a lot bigger than it really is. Having a draft built also helps just with coming up with new ideas. Once something's down on the page, it's easier to go, well, what if I add this? Or what if I change that? Like up the end of the river, maybe I'll add a small sinkhole that opens up to an underground, self-contained forest, something you couldn't see from the main path. Getting more variation in the elevation would be good too. It's pretty flat at the moment, so I might actually raise the forest area up so the player has to hike a bit to reach it. Once the overall feel of the map is more concrete, I'm going to move on to doing top-down views of each area, building up a detailed world map that you could actually see the player running around in. That's the second painting done. Let's check out that first town. So, here we are in the fishing village, the first of 3 towns that'll be in the game. It's tucked away in the corner of the island, hidden behind the mountain range. There's a path up the back that leads you through the mountains around to that plateau you can see in the first painting. There's also a lookout through there that lets you see into the third town directly from above. You'll have caught a glimpse of it in the opening, but we're going to leave that design till later. This town's pretty small. All it's got is a fishing shack for buying tools, an inn the townsfolk stay at, and one other miscellaneous house. Not super sure what to put there. Originally it was going to be a bank, but I drifted away from the idea of currency pretty early on, so maybe it's an abandoned house? Maybe you can live there? I don't know. If you have ideas, then let me know. This is actually the first painting I did for the project, and it took the longest by a good chunk. Well, minus that opening animation, that thing took me like 30 hours, but this painting was about 5. I don't do a lot of painting, but I want to do more, so this game was kind of just my excuse to start. Gives me something bigger to work on in small chunks, and makes each painting feel like it's building towards something more. I did a couple designs for the inside of that fishing shack there, so let's take a look at that now. From the outside, you can see it's got 2 floors, both with huge windows that overlook the ocean. Inside now, the first floor is the store, and the second is where the shopkeeper sleeps. The walls are covered in fishing memorabilia. There's fish tanks, trophies, tools, terrariums with exotic animals trapped inside. It's more of a trophy room than an actual store at the moment, but it's fun to look at, so that's fine. I did 2 designs of the shack. I think the first one is a better painting, but the second has a better store layout, so I'll have to come back and do some more iterations down the line. Being a fishing game, it'd be pretty boring if there was no progression with the tools you could unlock, so each town will have characters you can trade with to get new ones, but if you come here first, you'll probably have the most variety earlier on in the game. I'm thinking you wake up on that beach with nothing but a flimsy little net, but coming here you could buy a proper rod or a harpoon. The different tools will let you catch different things. You're obviously not going to catch a shark with a broken net, but you might be able to grab some shrimp. I added a little coffee table there for this second one because it felt like the room needed more life. The first painting has the tanks spread around the room a bit more, which is nice. I kind of like the idea of this place being the slightly niche hangout spot in the town. I mean, at the moment it does have the most interesting stuff to look at, but anyway, moving on. So you fish and you explore, but unless there's something to nudge you in a direction, the game's gonna feel kinda aimless. So that's where NPCs come in. The way I think about it, there's 3 types of NPC in this game: quest, lore, and store. Store NPCs I kinda covered in the last painting. There'll be a few of those in the game, but it's more interesting if you have to work for your progression rather than just buying it from a store. By the way, progression isn't just better fishing rods. Exploring is a huge chunk of this game, which leads us to quest NPCs. These guys will ask the player to bring them specific rare fish. In exchange, you might get an axe that you can use to cut down the dead trees hiding a secret grotto in the forest. Or some of them might give you gold so you can go back to the shopkeep. These quests can only be done once though, so the player is encouraged to explore the island rather than grind for gold. Now, lore NPCs are a bit different. They'll tell you about the world, stories of myths and places they've adventured to. Each one talks about a unique spot in the game, all of which the player can discover on their own, but some will be harder to find than others. Some of them will show you a hand-drawn map with directions that only vaguely resemble the actual world map. You can only look at this map while talking to them though. This way you still have to find it yourself. It's not about marking the next checkpoint on your map and moving from A to B. I'm still kind of stuck on the idea of currency in this game though. Having money is a simple way to allow players to progress, but it might be more fun if you have to quest for each new tool. That way you're limited by your exploration rather than gold, which better reinforces the core gameplay loop. At the same time though, that opens up the question of what do I do with all these damn fish I'm catching if I can't sell them? Enter the shrines. Now this one took a bit of head scratching, but if you can't sell the fish, there's gotta be something else you can do with them. How boring would it be to be running around catching all these fish only to throw them out because your bag reaches its size limit? Shrines are these small places the player can make offerings to. When you find them, you can drop off the fish you've caught, and in turn level up the shrine. There will be at least one hidden in each area, so it gives you something else to keep an eye out for. Fish have a hidden points value that correlates with their rarity. As you level up the shrine, you'll increase the glow around it and change its hue. Leveling them up will get you funky cosmetic items that help keep the game fresh. It's a small thing, but in a slow-paced, relaxing game like this, it's those smaller details that kind of make up the whole experience. This mechanic gives an incentive to offload your fish rather than hoard them. Sure, you might find an NPC to trade your rare fish to, but the shrine you just passed is so close to leveling up. This way, even if you give up a quest fish as an offering, you won't regret it as if you unknowingly trashed a rare item. If you find every shrine in the game and fully level them, you'll receive some sort of secret message. You can feel your spirits lifting, a new path has opened up to the great beyond. This will grant you access to the hidden final area in the game. You'll have to search for it yourself, but NPCs will talk in myths of the land amongst the stars with all the fish you can dream of. They'll give vague hints on where it might be, but ultimately it'll be up to you to find it since it won't be marked on the map. So that's the current state of the project. Over half the island is yet to be designed, the bits I've got still need fleshing out, and I didn't even cover everything that I've done so far, so expect a part 2 on the horizon. But I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.